Hey, how's it going, guys? So today we're gonna go over absolute value functions and its transformations. So what do I mean with that? What I mean is each one of those letters and symbols has an effect on the graph, and we call those transformations. So for instance, your plus or minus does something. So when it's plus, it's gonna affect it in a different way than when it's a minus. Your a value, it's also gonna do something. When your h is negative or when your h is positive, it's also gonna affect it in a certain way. And when your k is positive or when your k is negative, it's also going to affect it in a different way. Now, I'm not going to go over those. That's actually going to be your assignment. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you how to graph an absolute value function. If you remember from Algebra 1, an absolute value function it has the shape of a V. It has a V shape. So, here's the example. And as you notice, your function is in HK form, which means that we can use what we have learned on the past lesson. So we're going to go ahead and graph this function. Again, I'm going to go ahead and look at my slope. In this case, for your absolute value function, your A keeps being your slope, and that is going to change later on. So my slope is going to be -2 over 1. I'm going to take my h and my k, and if you remember, we're going to switch the symbol of your h. So instead of being negative, now it's going to be positive. Your k is going to stay exactly the same. So here is my special point. So now we can go ahead and graph it. Again, super simple. The only thing that you need to remember is that it's going to have a V shape, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So my starting point is going to be 1, 2. So starting from 0, I'm going to go over 1 and up 2, which means that there's my special point. Now, here's something that I want you to add to your vocabulary notes. Your special point, in this case, for an absolute value function, we call it a vertex. And I'll show you in a minute why we call it a vertex. Alright, now we're going to use our slope. Now, notice that my slope, it's a negative, which means that instead of going up, it's actually going to go down. It's going to decrease. So, because I should be getting a V shape, I got to do it to both sides, and this is where a vertex comes into place. What a vertex is the middle of the function, and it's the symmetry point. What does symmetry mean? It means that both sides are pretty much a mirror image of the other. So that means that there is an imaginary line there that cuts that function in half. So this is what we call an axis of symmetry. Okay? So that's going to help us right now create the graph. So because my slope is -2, that means I'm going to, instead of rising, I'm going to go down 2 and over 1. So starting from my beginning point, I'm going to go down 2 over 1. Okay? And there's my point. Now remember that I have an axis of symmetry, which means that that same point is going to be mirror to the other side of the symmetry line, which means that I'm also going to go down 2, but instead of going over to the right, I'm going to go to the left. And now I have a mirror image of that second point. You can continue to make more points to kind of make it more accurate if you want. You don't have to. I'll just go ahead and do it again. So starting from that point, I'm going to go down 2 over 1, and from the other point, down 2 over 1, and again, a mirror image. And that should be enough for you to graph the function. Oops. Okay, and there's kind of like an upside down V shape. That's pretty much how you graph an absolute value function. Now, one really quick thing before you get into before you get into your assignment. You're going to be asked at some point to calculate change. You can actually calculate the rate of change given an interval by using the formula that you see right there. I don't know if you remember, but that is pretty much the slope formula. You can compare it to y of 2 minus y of 1 over x of 2 minus x of 1. Okay, so just to kind of give you an example, let's say I want to calculate the rate of change given the interval negative 5 comma 0, right? That means that I want to know what is the rate of change between here and here. Let's say I just want to calculate that. Well, I can use that formula. So if I look at those points, the first point is negative 5 comma negative 8 and 0 comma 0. So those are going to be my 2 points. So there's my x of 1, y of 1, x of 2, y of 2, and all you got to do is basically just plug it in. So my y of 2 is 0 minus negative 8. And notice how I kept a negative in the middle, over x of 2, which is 0, minus x of 1, which is negative 5. And again, notice how the middle negatives stay the same. Just go ahead and calculate it. So that's going to be 8 over 5, which cannot be simplified further. And your rate of change between the interval negative 5 to 0 is 8 over 5. Okay? And that's it for today. Make sure that you come back after you've done the activity to fill everything out.